Anyways, appreciate you and appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And I just wanted to start off by saying we're so glad that you're here, and I cannot stop listening to your first song. But we're gonna get to that next. I want to start off with the beginning. Your name Canyon wasn't the one you were born with.
I mean, I technically had
Wild.
another name for like maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe technically, but it was a quick turnaround that my mom changed my name. Like it was very quick. It was the same day.
So she named you the other name, and then she
She
was
was
like,
yeah, she was planning on calling me Emma the whole time I was in her stomach. Like the entire time she says that I was in utero, she was thinking Emma, Emma, Emma. And then right after I was born, there was the legend goes that there was a Neil Young song, which is kind of a deep cut. It's called Thrasher. And apparently that was playing in the room, and she heard this line of lyrics where he says Crystal Canyons, and then she changed it to Canyon. So right after I was born.
it fits you perfectly.
And I feel like the story is crazy. I mean, it's I it yeah, it kind of feels like she set me up. I always say like I feel like I would be living an alternate life if I would have stayed Emma. I'd probably be like an accountant with like some college degree.
That's so funny. No, my legal first name is actually something different than Marisa, but my parents just started calling me Marisa. And
Get
then when I was
out.
like 6, they were like, "By the way, your name is this other name." And I was like, "What?" So I feel you, but I love Marisa because it's like me. It's always felt like me. So I got the right name too. So
Yeah.
that's so cool. So Neil Young, you mentioned, did you grow up with a lot of music around you, or did you come from a family of musicians?
So yeah, it's interesting because like I grew up in a small town in Northern California where we lived pretty remotely. We lived like in the Tahoe National Forest, which is like it's not a neighborhood where, kids are hanging out. We didn't have cable TV. So it was kind of isolated in a few ways that like I was really only able to have access to like the tapes and CDs that my mom had, and then radio. So we got two radio stations that I would listen to. There was like a pop radio station, and there was like, I think it was a country station that I was able to get. But that was really what I listened to growing up was like my mom's folk albums and then pop radio. And I did not ever watch TV, like MTV, because we just didn't have access to those things. So I kind of feel like I grew up under a musical rock. I didn't like, okay, example, the Rolling Stones. I didn't discover them until like, I want to say like 10, 15 years ago. Like, true. Like, I was like, wow, this is a great song. A friend of mine was playing it. They're like, yeah, this is the Rolling Stones Canyon, like a really huge song. I had no idea. And my mom played piano, and she's a writer. So, and my dad was a musician as well. So it runs in the blood, apparently.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
So, did you sing or pick up a guitar or piano first?
So my mom actually was responsible for putting me in classical guitar lessons starting in third grade. I was really resistant to playing guitar. I never wanted to. Even still, I've come to like really love it now, but it's never been an instrument that I felt called to. I feel like naturally. Still, it's like I never will take the time to really go practice it because I could be so much better than I am. It's maybe me still like rebelling as like a third grader, like I don't want to practice, I don't want to do it. I still remember fighting with my mom about not wanting to play, but I'm so grateful I did. And I dabbled in a bunch of different instruments. Like I played viola, I played just a little bit of piano, I played drums for a year. Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was like intensely musical or anything, but I definitely felt very curious and drawn to different instruments for sure.
Did you see the instrument as more of a vehicle for like your thoughts, your words?
Exactly. Yeah. And I still look at guitar and piano like that. Like I've never been like one to sit down and just like come up with a cool guitar riff. It's just it's a tool to help me get the melodies out. Like when the lyrics and the melodies come, I just need like something to, like a vehicle to help give the melody context, I think.
So I want to fast forward to 2014, which is actually 5 years before I met you, and I'll get to that in a minute. But you had an album that came out, so it's crazy. You had like a 10-year gap between albums. Where was your headspace? Because I don't think you had your first child yet.
Yeah. So the first album came out. I mean, I started, so I turned 40 this year, and I moved to New York on my 18th birthday. So right after I moved to the city, I started playing out and playing shows, but I had never recorded any music. So it took me a long time to get the first album done, which is called Half. And yeah, I did that in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 2014. I was really happy and excited to finally have that like tangible proof of like, see, I'm a musician, even though I had been performing live for so long before that. And yes, I did not have kids at that point. And yeah, shortly afterwards, my son was born 3 years later. And, it just, and then my daughter was born 2 years ago. So in that 10 years, I did do some regional touring, and yeah, starting the family like just really is an all consuming thing, as I think it
100%.
needs to be. And now that my daughter's 2.5, I mean, I'm still not sleeping through the night, but hopefully soon. Like I feel very much like this is the time where we are officially done having kids. I'm officially done breastfeeding. I breastfed for 5 years of my life between
Me
both of my
too.
kids. So I was like, okay, my body is mine again, and I have a little bit more free time, and it just feels like I'm so ready to go. So ready to go.
How far apart are your kids?
I think like 4 years and some change. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a gap, but I personally needed that gap because my son did not sleep through the night either for, I think, 3 years. And I was like, I just need to sleep, guys. I just need to sleep, and then I can have another one.
But I want to get back to New York because I think our timelines might have crossed a bit. Because I was there, I think 2004 to like 2009 before moving to Stanford. Where were you living at the time? Like, what was your.
Well, I had several different apartments while in the city. My first one was in the East Village on 3rd Street and First Ave. And that was, I mean, it's great because each of the places that I have like real distinct memories at those places. Just like, real good stories, good slash bad stories. But yeah, I was in the East Village, and then I lived in Hell's Kitchen for a little bit. I lived right in Times Square for a little bit, which was weird. That's like a weird, not normal neighborhood to live in.
Yeah,
Um,
that's like the center of like, it's chaotic and it's
tourism.
cool, but it's a lot of
Yeah.
theater. Yeah, yeah,
It was weird. Like every morning, it was a joke between my friend and I who lived together at the time. Like every morning, she'd be like in like a business suit, like with her briefcase, like walking to work. And every morning, she would get approached by the guys selling tickets to the double-decker tour bus. And she was always like, "Give me a break. Like I'm wearing a business suit. Like I'm not a tourist. I know I live in Times Square, but like I'm not a tourist. I don't want to buy a ticket." Anyways,
Well, what got you out of New York? I got out by way of my husband just didn't want to live there, and we were getting married.
that'll
But
do it.
yeah,
That'll do it. So we actually, instead of coming up to Westport, which seems like that would have made sense at the time, we actually moved from New York to LA. And then we were in LA for a couple years, and then we moved from LA to Westport. So we knew we needed to go to another major city for like what my husband did for work, and we needed to go where his agencies were, and LA was like the next step. We did that and then came to Westport because apparently I'm an East Coast girl at heart.
yeah, it's so funny. A lot of people say they're going to move to California, but like such a different vibe than
Different.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
My
when
husband is definitely the California vibe. He's from Indiana originally, but like if it were up to him, I think we'd still be there because he is all about like the 73 degrees and sunny vibe. Like he loves that. And I'm like, give me some cold. I want snow. I want the seasons. And he's like, no thanks.
so funny. That's so
Yeah.
funny. I want to. So okay, I want to fast forward to when we met in 2019. I remember watching you. I think you were singing a song. Was it called "Kiss Me Slowly"?
Slow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I just call it
kiss me
slow. But yes,
slow.
I
And
say kiss me
your
slow on
young
it.
son was like playing on the sidewalk, and I have a son too. My sons are 10 and 12, so I know kids, but this kid wasn't into me. He was into Bob, which is totally fine. Like, and I'm thinking, I hear your voice, I see you. You've got this energy, this magnetism, and you know, I was comparing my insides to your outsides, which a lot of women do, and I was like, wow, her life must be perfect. Like, look at her. Like, she's got it all figured out with her guitar. And then I did see, like, over the next few years, you and your family had some pretty serious challenges at the same time as COVID was happening. Can you kind of talk about those?
Yeah. It's always crazy to look back on these huge, like, pivotal moments in your life once you've had the perspective of moving through kind of the meat of them. So we discovered actually really recently, as like earlier this year, that my son, who's 7 now, has a really rare immune deficiency disorder where he just doesn't have a properly functioning immune system. And it's super rare. It's like literally one in a million. There's 3 other people in Connecticut that have it, and he's actually super stoked. He like wants to meet the other people that have it, but it's called Job's syndrome, and it's a whole story. That's like a whole conversation in and of itself. But we did find out this year. But it explains why. Back during the peak of COVID, he was getting so sick. Like, we didn't understand at the time why his body was not responding to the traditional treatment for, he was getting sick and he wasn't getting well, and he was kept developing pneumonias, to the point where, like, one time his left lung was like completely collapsed, and it was very confusing because he presented healthy and normal, like not completely healthy, but like he did not present as sick as he was, which was very confusing to us and his pediatricians and like the emergency room doctors. But anyways, we have now found out why, and yeah, it was hard because at the time, dealing with mother's guilt, which is really common, I think, for all of us. It's the universal feeling. I know dads get it too, of course, but yeah, I was touring, doing like a small run in the Northeast, opening for my buddy Chris Trapper. And I remember just feeling so bad when I found out my son was in the hospital, because before I had left, we had just gone to the pediatrician and they had checked his lungs and are like, he's clear. Like, for some reason, he didn't respond to the antibiotics. We'll put him on another round. But, we just think it's the flu. Like, you're good to go. And I felt like, okay, cool, I can go do music. And then, of course, had to cancel everything. That was an easy decision to make. But, yeah, just like feeling so guilty and bad for like leaving my son who was on death's door and I had no idea. Family's always going to be number one for me. Like, my job as a mama is like always number one. Um, and that was a clarifying moment for me too, when I realized, I was like, I really don't care about anything other than my kid being okay. And thank goodness he is. We know now what we need to do to keep him safe. And yeah,
And
it's,
then the world's shutting down, so it's not like you
I
can
know.
go and just see your friends. I
Yeah.
and it's hard because sometimes when I'm going through hard things, I write songs about them, and but then you feel guilty that you're taking time away from the matter at hand. So I can
Yeah.
absolutely see that. I know that it took a while for you to just sort of breathe that sigh of relief, but when you could finally move through that, and then you had your daughter, when did you start saying, okay, this, I'm ready to do my art again. I'm ready to like really return in earnest.
Yeah. I mean, I think the signs were really clear to me while I was still in the thick of raising both of my kids when they were younger. Like, because I would continue to write. Like, I have a huge backlog of songs that I've been writing over the last several years. I think when we sat down and counted them before we started this new album, I think I had like 24 that were 3/4 of the way done, if not completely finished. And I always knew that, like, the feeling that I would get when I would write, and you get that release that comes from just like the deep focus, download, like writing time, I always knew I was going to get back to it because I never feel like it left me. I just didn't have the time to devote to focusing on it as much. Like, I would have to kind of sneak it in, like, quick writing sessions, like, 5 minutes at a time when I'm in between getting out of the shower and brushing my teeth, like very micro moments. But I think I really felt 100% sure like it was time to get back to work in earnest when my husband and I had the conversation about how we are not going to have another child. We've had a boy and a girl, and we feel so lucky to have been blessed to have both. And I was like, we're done. And once we agreed we were done, I was like, okay, time for me to go back to work now. I've got this.
I'd like to talk about your new album now, so that's a good segue. And especially the song, the latest one, "Bruised Ego." Did I get the title right? Right?
Yeah, Bruised Ego.
I want to talk. I want to talk about "Bruised Ego." So I first heard it. I hear a lot of my songs. Like I'll pop them in my ear and I'll go for my jog. I love running. I just get, but and it's crazy. Like this song, you get right to the point right away. It kicks off with this, sense of confidence, this defiance, like self-assuredness. Like, you know what? No, I'm going to move forward, whatever to you, haters. But then it segues into these moments of internal self-doubt. I want to talk about what inspired the song and kind of the story behind it. And then I want to talk about the impact as well.
Awesome. So yeah, the song is definitely one of the most personal ones I've written because I lost a bunch of hair, and I had like a bunch of melasma come out. I just went through like big body changes, as I know so many of us do. Guys go through it too, but women, I think, especially from all the hormonal stuff. And I have a couple autoimmune diseases as well that I don't usually talk about, but like that has a huge impact on my life and just my health. And like, so going through my first pregnancy was challenging, but my second one really took it out of me to the point where like, my midwives after I had my daughter were like, they were like, you need to be done. Like your body did an amazing job and you need to be done. And I knew that intuitively as well. But just dealing with all the big body changes afterwards and losing so much hair was so challenging for my confidence. Like I realized like just how much I rely on my outward physical appearance just for a sense of like identity. Like, who am I if I don't look a certain way? And it was really humbling for like, I think like 2 years just dealing with all of the big changes to my body and getting older, of course, like that's humbling as well. But I have a new take on the whole aging thing, but yeah.
Um, so this started. So how did this experience? You're dealing with your body changing in a way that you don't like it. Your hair's falling out. I'm guessing this happened a few years ago after you
Yeah.
said after your or during
Yeah.
the time when you were having your second baby. Did you just find yourself strumming your guitar and it just sort of poured out of you, or?
You know, I can't remember exactly when I wrote Bruised Ego because, again, I write a lot. Like, I probably could go back and find voice memos from exactly when it came, but I imagine it just came probably one night when I was exhausted and having one of those, quick moments where I have some quiet time and am just being real with myself. It's always hard to pinpoint how they come. I can tell you that most, like 90% of my songs come when I'm doing something mundane and mindless, like brushing my teeth, taking a shower, driving the car, folding laundry, doing the dishes. They usually come very quickly when my conscious brain is engaged in a mindless task where I'm not really thinking about it. And then my unconscious creative brain will just kind of download a thought that I usually am not even really aware that I'm thinking of at the time. But it's been clearly something that's been like marinating and churning in my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. For me, it's driving, like, and that'll come to
Yeah.
me during those
Yeah.
moments. I'll have to do a quick voice memo.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but I want to talk about the impact of this song because, like, obviously, there's it. I'm certain you felt this, kind of like it was very cathartic and to just get that out. But I saw something on your social media threads that others have felt really impacted by it. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so like I realized too, like when you know, when we decided, like my producer and I decided that we were going to start with this song, I wrote this clearly for myself at the time. And I wanted to be really honest about that and honor that. And I didn't want to hide behind, like, oh, I'm just writing this in general for anybody, because I had not talked at all about my hair loss. I had not talked about any of that stuff. And I hadn't talked about my health stuff either. Like, I just was like very, and I still, I think to a big degree, really try to always put my best foot forward and like not complain and kind of power through, push through things. But then I realized that so many people are dealing with similar stories, and like what a shame it would be if I wasn't willing to be vulnerable, like truly, and like really talk about it. Cause then I feel like it's kind of a missed opportunity to connect with people. And that's the whole reason why I write songs in the first place, is to connect with people. So it dawned on me when I was down in Nashville a couple months ago, and I had such a hard time performing the song in front of a group of other songwriters because I was so open and vulnerable when I was doing this one workshop there. I realized I've got to share this. And yeah, it's been really beautiful to see how other people have been willing to share their stories. And then, of course, it's inspiring. Now I'm like, okay, honesty and like openness and vulnerability, that's the only way I'm going to ever do things going forward, because I just see the power in it. It's so cool.
That's so amazing because like you it's and that's I think the story right there. You wrote this as something you needed to write for yourself, and you had no way of, you weren't thinking that like this could actually help other people.
Yeah,
This
definitely wasn't
experiment.
thinking. I wasn't thinking
Yeah.
really about anything in the moment, other than just getting my feelings out. Um, and truth be told, it was a conversation I had to have with myself before I started talking publicly about all of it. Like, I never talked about why I always wore hats. I never talked about that. Like, I just always wore hats and would make a joke about, like, oh, just love hats, always wearing hats, you know? And it was, yeah, I had to like really decide, like, okay, am I willing to air my stuff out? And yeah, I was. So
So you mentioned your producer. How did you meet them? I forgot the
so
name.
Rob Griffith is
Rob
my
Griffith.
producer.
Yes.
Yeah. So he is the drummer for this incredible band that I had actually never heard of, but they've had amazing commercial success. They're called Bronze Radio Return, and they're based out of Hartford. And I met him because he was mixing a side project that I was a part of called Fast River, that I did during COVID with my buddy Corey Durkin. Just for fun, just to keep the creative juices flowing. And he's so much fun to hang out with. But that's how I met Rob. And yeah, I was just so honored when he reached out one day and pretty much said, I think, what every artist dreams about someone saying to them, which he said, I believe in you. I think the world needs to hear what you're doing, and I want to help you. And it's like, wait, I've been waiting for someone to say this my entire life.
I love it that the stars align so well with you. That's so great.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about the rest of the record? Maybe like how is, Canyon of 2014 different than like what you're going to put out now with all these things that you've done?
Yeah. So we have so many songs queued up that are going to be released before the whole record comes out. So
And what is
um
that date? The whole
we
record?
we haven't released the actual date of the final full album release, but
Okay,
we're
so
doing
so sometime
song
in
by
2025 though, right?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It'll, I mean, because we have so many songs built up, that we've decided we're really going to take our time with each song, give each song its moment to shine, um, and then release the whole album with a few additional songs once we're done releasing all the singles. Yeah, like the whole, I think, just my music has evolved to a place I feel like that is, I'm open to exploring more sounds. I'm open to exploring more subject matter in a detailed way that I don't think I was back when I wrote my last album. I was very vague a lot of times in the past, I think, as a writer. And now I'm choosing to be a little bit more direct in what I'm saying, which always kind of scared me in the past to say what I really was thinking or feeling, because again, it kind of exposes you. It makes me feel vulnerable. If I say what I really think, then someone can take that and run with it. Then they really know exactly how I feel. And so in the past, I felt like I was a lot more vague. So I feel like the new set of songs will be a lot more clear, concise on what I'm trying to say. And then um, I'm just really open to exploring a bigger sound, because honestly, we are really looking to break my career right now. Like, to be 100% honest, like I am looking for more commercial success. I will never not be a writer. I'll never not be a musician because I feel so called to it. But I also now am in a place in my life where like I need to pay for preschool.
There are so many examples this year of women who are 40 and over who are like, I don't care what the industry is saying, that we're past our time, and including me, we're going to release an album anyways. Now, some of them are famous, like, Kate Hudson. Obviously, she has all the resources in the world to release an album. I don't necessarily, I don't know, but you, like you said, paying for preschool, and I was like, yes, tell me. So for all those moms who are over 35, what is the takeaway? What advice can you give?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I was actually just talking about this last night too. I was up working super late last night at the studio with a buddy of mine who flew into town. So we were doing a duet, and I was telling them this is the best demographic. Like, women, I'd say 35 plus is the best demographic for anything, in my opinion. And here's why. Especially after having kids, we become even better multitaskers. We are incredibly organized. We're focused. Like, we know what we want and what we don't want. Our sense of self is so much stronger. And like, I remember in my 20s, like, I just was like constantly apologizing for like for taking up space, like being in
Yeah,
the
me
way.
too. You're right.
Yeah.
I hear you. Like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry for breathing too loudly. I mean, and I think that there's something so powerful about like when women get older. And of course this applies to men too, but I do think like something specifically to women, and if you've been lucky enough to become a parent, like how it causes you to level up on so many different ways in your life than you ever could have imagined.
do your kids have a favorite song of yours? Because mine are very honest. They'll be like, I like that song. I don't like that one.
That's awesome. I think, it's cute. They've been starting to like learn to sing along. My son actually really likes Victorious, the one that's coming out soon. But family members of mine that have heard other songs they're not out yet. There's a song that you're hearing it first, but I have a song called Blah Blah Blah, which it's a crazy song because it doesn't actually sound like something I would have written. It's very different from anything that I've done. But that one I think is everyone's favorite so far because it's so fun to sing along to. It's like a very fun and silly and like ridiculous song. And I think everyone who's heard that, like that's the one that they keep asking for because it's just, yeah, so
Well, we
different.
will we will keep an ear out for that one for sure. I
Yeah.
just want to thank you, Canyon, for getting online with me, and joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for like giving a spotlight and a platform to women like me that are out there doing it, women like you out there doing it. And yeah, I'm so grateful for like you taking the time and energy to help elevate us all. So thank you for that.
Well, I love being a rock mommy. I love my rock mommies. Oh, yeah, it's been great.
So I'm honored to be in the fray with all the other rock mommies.